What's the stupidest fight you've ever had with a significant other? Years and years ago, I was dating a young woman who seemed predisposed towards losing her temper about the strangest things. I could say something as innocuous as, "I'll see you tomorrow," and it would spawn an argument about, well, to be honest, I'm not sure. Perhaps the most ridiculous fight that we had, though, was ostensibly about aliens. I don't recall exactly how the conversation started, but I know the young woman had asserted her belief that extraterrestrial life simply did not exist. "That seems almost impossible," I replied. "Think about how enormous the universe is." "So what?" she answered. "That doesn't mean there are more people out there." "How are you defining people?" I asked. "I mean, there probably aren't more humans out there, but I'd say it's almost a given that sentient aliens exist." This seemed to irritate the young woman. "People means people." "Okay," I said, trying to redirect the discussion. "But how do those people look? It's impossible that they're, say, silicone-based creatures that look like crystals or something." "That's stupid." I shook my head. "No, think about it. If they had a means of generating electricity, their internal makeups could act like a kind of naturally occurring circuitry. If it was complex enough, and if those crystals were capable of thinking, if they were intelligent, wouldn't they be people?" The conversation took a significant downhill turn at that point, as my then-girlfriend snarled at me in anger. "I honestly can't believe you," she growled. "What did I do? Why are you upset? You're sitting here telling me that my jewelry is smarter than me?" "I never said." "And you wonder why I'm mad?" "I never said." Oh, go on. Tell me about how Diamond is smarter than me." Now, a wiser man would have used that opportunity to say something disarming and flattering like, "You're much smarter than a diamond, and much more beautiful, too." A wiser man might have simply held his tongue. A wiser man, I think, would probably have recognized the fight for what it was. A young woman feeling intellectually inadequate and offered some variety of reassurance and comfort. A remarkably stupid man would have replied by saying, "No, diamonds are carbon-based. I said silicone-based." The fight lasted quite some time after that. I can tell she believed in cube time. Story 2. I can't remember what the initial fight was, though my girlfriend and I had plans to go to breakfast the following morning. She was being a huge witch to me, more than normal, like saying I need to stop hanging out with my friends, etc. And I was just fed up with it. So I told her I wasn't taking her to breakfast the next morning. This woman loved breakfast. So we stopped talking till morning. She calls me in the morning, all happy and giddy, asking where we're going to breakfast. I tell her I'm not taking her to breakfast. She starts screaming, etc. I hang up and go on with my day. Later, my buddy comes over, and just as he's walking, I see her pull up with her mom driving the car to drop her off. She sees my buddy walking in the door, whom she hates, and just starts screaming at me and charging me as her mom drives off. So I'm sitting at my door trying to get my buddy to get inside so I can lock the door, and my dog runs out of my house and starts running away across the street. I proceed to chase my dog while my girlfriend catches up to me and chases me whilst screaming at me as I try to catch my dog. I eventually caught my dog, and I got hurt by my girlfriend. Asked her to leave. Bet the dog thought it was all some hilarious new game. Story 3. This was probably over a year after we broke up, but we're still living together. He came into my room after watching Modern Marvels and said, "Panda, what's wrong with me?" I jokingly asked, "Do you want the short list or the long?" But that wasn't the fight. So he said that he had watched Modern Marvels on Chrome and a trucker had spent $10,000 over 10 years on chroming various parts of his big rig. My ex could not understand how this guy could have spent that much money on Chrome because that is a ridiculous thing to spend that much money on. I said something to the effect of, "Well, I'm sure you spend tons of money on electronics that this guy would look at and go, that's a stupid amount of money to spend on gaming and computer stuff. It's just how he chooses to spend his money because it makes him happy." He disagreed and believed that $10,000 worth of Chrome was crazy, but $10,000 worth of computer parts was not. But that wasn't the fight either. That was just a friendly debate. Looking back, I'm still not sure how this happened, but somehow this devolved into him calling my dad a selfish baby boomer, and when I pointed out that the boomers are from like 1945 to 1965, well, my dad was born in 1938, so he could literally not be a baby boomer, my ex lost it, and the friendly debate turned into a screaming match. Story 4. This occurred when I first started seeing my significant other, and we weren't official yet. Typical college budding relationship. I was a freshman, he was a senior. I had way too much to drink when we were out one night and ended up blacking out. His roommate and I were bickering at the bar, and my significant other decided it was time to bring us home. I came out of the blackout retching all over his bed. I quickly ran to the bathroom, dripping liquids on the floor on the way there. Ew, I know. Hashtag college. I helped him strip the sheets and throw them in the wash. I'm embarrassed to say he had to help me shower off, not in a romantic way because I was still very, very hammered. I then got incredibly mad at him because he refused to get angry with me for messing up all over his bed and being a general mess. I remember crying and demanding that he just get mad at me because I knew he was mad in his head. He kept insisting that he wasn't mad at all and needed to wash his sheets anyway. This went on for about 20 minutes back and forth until I eventually fell asleep. When I woke up the next day, very hungover and mortified, to find he still wasn't mad. I realized I had a keeper. That's nice of him. He's a keeper all right, and I hope she doesn't do any more of that to test him. Story 5. This girl I dated senior high of high school and I happened to be in the same health class. We decided it would be fun to partner together for the animatronic baby project. She went to the mall with Hunter, fake baby's name, on Saturday and was going out that night. I told her I was getting dinner with some friends so she can stop by and give me the baby on the way back from the mall before she heads out. Well, she's taking a long time to get home from the mall and friends are waiting for me to get dinner with him. I'm waiting on this baby being dropped off. I finally told her to just meet me at the restaurant and drop the baby off there. Well, she did, but she flips out when she gets there, saying it's irresponsible for me to leave the house when she needs to drop this baby off. The restaurant was maybe 15 minutes out of her way. I started telling her she was supposed to drop the baby off at X time. She yells at me, saying she needed to pull over to feed the baby and it took some time. We get into an all-out screaming match in the entrance of this restaurant, over a robot baby. Finally, she left and I went back to my table with a baby. People thought we were just a crazy high school couple who got pregnant too early and some woman actually offered to watch my baby while I ate. She laughed when I said it was a robot baby for health class. We apologized on Sunday, but man, did we get pissed at each other over a fake baby. Guess the project worked. Story 6. I'm super late to the show, but I'll post anyway. I was flying home from a week in New York City on business. I live in Michigan, and I was sick for the entire trip. My flight was delayed, and when I landed at DTW, it was raining harder than it had rained in years. The car dropped me off at the office where my car was parked, and I called my boyfriend who was waiting for me to come home. He was hanging out with friends at a nearby downtown bar and wanted me to pick him up. Of course, I was going to go get him. I wanted 2 things that night: my love and sleep. The rain was falling in sheets. It was like driving through Niagara. For miles. I still felt pretty sick and was cranky from the airports and security and the stress of the work when I called my boyfriend and asked where he was. He told me to pick him up at the top level of the parking garage in town. I drove up to meet him and there he was, standing soaked in the rain. Arms outstretched, head tilted, he danced in the rain waiting for me. Sitting in the car, I asked him to just get in so we could get home. He shook his head and told me to come dance with him. I refused. I was not having it. I was sick, tired, stressed, and wanted to go home. He insisted, and so did I. I eventually won, but the whole ride home was spent in silence. We showered together in silence, went to bed in silence, and I felt horrible. We're no longer together. And every day that I remember that, I wish that I would have gone out of the car. I've always been a fan of cheesy romantic stuff like that, and the ironic part is that he wasn't. But that night he was, and I wasn't having it. I was a fool. If you're somehow reading this, I should have danced with you. Given a second chance, I would. Story 7. That would be the fight we call freaking pancakes. Here's how it went down. Friday night, my wife informs me that tomorrow we're making these blueberry lemon pancakes. Sounds really good. Okay, I'm game. Did not look at the recipe. We went out that night and the next morning I'm tired, hungover, and hungry. But we have to make these pancakes. I can whip up pancake batter that is really good in 4 minutes. Don't need the mixer, just a bowl and a spoon and a couple of measuring cups. But this recipe, holy moly. Had to drag the KitchenAid blender out and to get another bowl for the batter. Had to grate lemons, had to separate eggs and beat the egg whites separately. I'm trying to just read one step at a time because each one is like a paragraph of stuff I have to do. Vanilla beans? Jesus Christ. Meanwhile, my wife is sitting there drinking coffee saying, "How much longer?" I don't know how much longer. At this point, I'm finally folding in the beaten egg whites into the rest of the batter. This is the last step, I think. I'd ask her to at least get the flat griddle heated up and some butter melted on it. She's like, "Why don't I just cook these? Jeez." And I snap. "Okay, you can cook the freaking pancakes." And I casually toss a small ladle I'm holding into the batter. But somehow, some way, it lands so perfectly that about half the bowl of batter just literally sprays our kitchen. I'm talking about atomized pancake batter in the cabinets, microwave, counters, floor, oven, cooktop, sink, me, her, the TV, and the cat. We both look at each other and just lose it. I'm laughing, she's laughing, and I cooked us what was left, and then we both cleaned up. We made them one other time when we were not hungover, and they were really good. Story 8. This was 4 years ago while I was living in Las Vegas and it was Christmas time. My boyfriend and I both couldn't afford to fly home to be with our families during Christmas, so we spent it together in an ugly Air Force dorm room. Come Christmas Day, and I decide the only food I acquire on this splendid day is a pizza Lunchable. But then boyfriend and I went out and started our hunt for a pizza Lunchable. After going to several gas stations and Walmarts, our searches are useless. I eventually settle for a gas station hot dog while my boyfriend gets a Jack in the Box. I ask him to save the ketchup for when we go home so I can use it on my hot dog. I was driving at this time. While filling up my car with gas, I didn't see my boyfriend throwing away his Jack in the Box bag. When we get back to his dorm room, I look at him expectantly, and he has this "oh no" look on his face and tells me he forgot and threw away the ketchup. I look at him, I look at the hot dog, and then throw the hot dog at him and slump against the floor and start crying. I then begin yelling at him. "You expect me to eat this? This is disgusting. Who eats hot dogs without ketchup?" It was a mixture of being homesick during the holidays and a mixture of my boyfriend failing. I was sobbing on the floor for probably a solid hour, going on and on about how nothing was going right and how I would starve. Story 9. My ex-girlfriend developed BPD, which led to a breakup. Most arguments were stupid, or like crazy and illogical. A list of my top 3 favorites are: before she had BPD, I constantly would explain that I wish she spent more time with me when we were home together, instead of sitting on her computer. After our breakup, when she asked me one of the reasons, I reiterate my point. Her response was, "I should have been clearer in my explanation." Bruh, I've never once worded it differently and now you get it. After being forcibly admitted for threatening to hurt herself, losing her job, and running back home to her parents, I visited twice before bringing her home. The first time was just for a day on the weekend, as I had job responsibilities. Most of the time I was there, she hid in her room and slept. I was yelled at later for not being there for her or spending time with her. See favorite argument number 1 for why this is crazy. My all-time favorite was after she was admitted. I was to blame for her being admitted, as I let it happen. Also, my mom had a hand in it. She wasn't even there when it happened and actually helped me get her out early instead of having to spend a week in there. I'm sure it had nothing to do with her not sleeping for a week, losing her mind, threatening to jump in the lake and end herself, or saying she wanted to hurt me and herself when the ER doctor asked. Bonus, she convinced me to bring her home from her parents by saying she would see a therapist, but she became unwilling to go to the one her parents were taking her to. A week later, I brought it up. She said only if I and her other friend agreed it was a good idea. 2 weeks later, she outright refused and said she'd consider a couples therapist. A month later, she said hell no and that we didn't need it, even though she no longer trusted me because I let her get admitted. I was pretty much out at that point. Story 10. So bummed I'm late to this party. So I'm in my college dorm room, taking a nap between classes, and suddenly I hear the phone ring in the other room. I sit bolt upright in bed, only to bang it on the bunk bed above me. I stumble out of bed and get tangled in my sheets, falling flat down. At this point, I'm crawling on all fours, trying to get to the next room and answer the phone, when the answering machine picks up. It's my girlfriend. Woot! I scramble faster, throw myself out of my sheets, reaching for the phone, and pick the receiver up, panting from the exertion. She doesn't even let me get a word out. "Aha! You're cheating! I knew you'd cheat on me, and now I caught you. Just listen to your breathing. You're disgusting." Clang of the phone receiver. I look at the phone in disbelief, look back at the trail of destruction I'd caused to pick up that phone call and pull the phone cord out of the wall and just go back to bed. Story 11. Back in high school, I was able to convince my dad to let me stay home from school one day. My girlfriend had to go to school that day, so I figured I would surprise her and her friends at lunch with a box of Hinteman's cookies. She loved them. Easy brownie points, and her friends would think I was a nice guy. So I went and bought a box, showed up at school and surprised her. Her friends were excited and were saying how nice I was. My girlfriend immediately flipped out as I had accidentally purchased the milk chocolate chip recipe instead of original recipe. She actually started screaming about how I should know which one to buy and I'd made a huge mistake and she wanted me to leave. I had no idea there were different recipes and just grabbed the first box I saw. This was about 15 years ago. But I remember this as one of the few times I was in a fight with a girlfriend and her female friends all took my side and basically told her she was being crazy. That does not happen very much at all. She was over it by that afternoon after school, but man, did she lose it during that lunch. Story 12. Oh boy, I have a few. She had a dream that I cheated on her, woke me up and was mad at me for it. Didn't talk to me for the next 8 hours based on what she dreamt in her own head. While in law school, she once found a post-it note with my name on it that wasn't in my handwriting. Some assignment from a teacher. So automatically that means I'm cheating on her. Because if I was cheating, why wouldn't I get someone else to write my name in a post-it note? Didn't talk to me for 4 hours. Got mad at me for having seen He's Not That Into You or whatever chick flick it was with an ex years before we dated. Only for about 2 hours she didn't talk to me there. Would frequently get blacked out hammered, do awful things she wouldn't remember and then get mad at me when I would confront her about it and say that I shouldn't bring those things up because she can't remember them. Those things include knocking me over one time while we were arguing and I was trying to walk away, on crutches. Basically, any time I looked at, talked to, or was in the presence of a woman meant that I was cheating on her and or I wanted to have intimacy with that person. All the same person. Yeah, that was not a fun time. Story 13. So my ex, we were dating at the time, and I were walking around London. I didn't have any money and was about to fly home to America the next day. We had been drinking that night, but I told him that we didn't have to go to any more bars so we could save money. However, he insisted that we go to one last bar. This time, his hammered self asked me to buy the drinks, and I said I couldn't afford them. He paid and then passive-aggressively didn't speak to me the rest of the time at the bar. When we left to walk home, he started giving me talks about how I never paid for anything, etc. I tried to explain that I had said that I didn't have any money, but he just kept yelling at me to apologize. Neither of us would give in. I wouldn't admit that he was right, and he was too hammered to admit that I had said I was broke. That at some point he insinuated that I was lucky because I got to live rent-free in a house all summer. He paid for everything, and I got everything I wanted, including intimacy. Well, I got angry, and arguments were always kind of stupid anyway, so I started yelling, "All right, I guess I'm just a freeloading woman," and I stormed off. My ex was chasing me down the street, and I guess at some point he had a change of heart about the money situation, so he's yelling at me, "Don't you dare call yourself that!" And I was yelling, "I can call myself that if I want to." We ended up making up a few minutes later, but to this day, the stupidest fight I've ever had with someone I've dated is me calling myself a freeloading woman and him telling me to stop. Story 14. Number 1. Girlfriend calls me while I'm playing ultimate frisbee. Obviously, I don't answer. She gets my friend and his girlfriend, let's call her M, to call me, along with her multiple times because I don't pick up. Once out of the game, I look at my phone with the 17 missed calls from girlfriend, friend, and M. I hit double send. Didn't have a smartphone. Figured I'll call back whoever called me last since it's clear they're all together. M picks up, hands phone to girlfriend, make plans. Later, girlfriend screams at me for calling M back instead of her and that I'm obviously in love with M. I had a thing for her roughly 2 years before that, but not anymore. We fight and I'm stupefied at the ridiculousness of why she's mad at me. Number 2, girlfriend called me the night the Red Sox won the WS in 2013. I'm out on the streets of our smallest university partying. She begs me to come to the bar down the street where she and some of my other friends, including M, are drinking and dancing. She finally convinces me to come over, I pay the cover, head to my group of friends where girlfriend is nowhere to be found. M, who is extremely intoxicated, attempts to dance with me. I politely push her away. Girlfriend sees an interaction between me and M and assumes that I let her go all over me, but in fact I pushed her away. She runs out the bar crying that I was all over M. Still untrue, and yells at me. I continue to tell her that this is a ridiculous misunderstanding and that I wouldn't do anything like that. She doesn't believe me. We have a ridiculous fight the entire night in which she damn near breaks the door down of my friend's apartment and they have to threaten to call the cops to get her to leave. Unfortunately, myself, my young self, could not see I was clearly in a toxic relationship. My friends eventually convinced me and I broke up with her, only to find out she got pregnant 3 weeks later. Anyways, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 15. My wife was on to me about getting my daughter, her stepdaughter, to do some yard work to honor her commitment. Daughter did a bad job and in a semi-panic, I took over the whacker and removed some daisies. Now her whole yard looks like garbage. You have this hill, totally beyond follow and now feral. Inside the house, basically a wholesome slum. Clutter but no garbage. We have bare walls in the house and electric cords where the walls aren't bare. I have no visual design sense and she admits she has less. But these daisies, the most important things in the universe. She was literally sobbing in the yard at 3 a.m., mourning them so hard I could hear her inside with the windows closed, which meant the neighbors could too. I went from the guy who had single-handedly kept the backyard from being completely lost to useless. This went on for a month because I don't know how to grovel. Then on the anniversary of her loss, she brings it up again because I apparently don't feel bad enough. I mentioned that I have never had thoughts of divorce until now. She took the hint and has not mentioned it in subsequent years. Daisies, man. Story 16. Had a fight with an ex over a hair elastic he found in his lounge. He flicks this green hair elastic at me, saying that he found one of my hair elastics. I knew it wasn't mine as I didn't own any green elastics and told him so. Apparently, by doing this, I was accusing him of cheating on me. No. The stupid argument went on for 3 days, with him insisting it was mine and getting ridiculously angry at me when I insisted that it wasn't. He even wore it around his wrist in some immature attempt to stir me up. We go over to his mate's house, who happens to have long hair. He spots the elastic on my ex's wrist and exclaims, "Oh, you found my elastic. Thanks, bro." Ex refused to apologize. This is the same ex who put holes in walls and furniture, then blamed me for making him do those things. Needless to say, that relationship didn't last very long. I noped the hell out of that train wreck. Story 17. He was mad that I didn't want him to help me with my homework. To put things in perspective, I was a third-year linguistics major and he was in the process of flunking out of tech school. He woke me up in the middle of the night with a phone call and said I wanted to go back to sleep. He refused to let me. I will never be that much of a doormat again. He started talking about how he would help me in school if I was struggling. I said he didn't need to because the professors had office hours and they would help me. He said no, I should come to him. I said he didn't really have a background in linguistics and he threw a fit and acted like I just called him a moron. Seriously, I was working on morphology and phonetics and acoustics. He couldn't have helped me with my homework any more than I could have helped him with his. He assumed that if I didn't understand something in class, he could Google it and explain it to me. I was just sitting there with my mouth hanging open, unable to believe how ridiculous he was being. This is the same dude who tried to convince me that metric and English were the same. Story 18. My husband adores bickering. We've talked about it before. I hate it, but I have a strong desire to be right or correct him on his views. It leads to interesting arguments. This morning, it was over his phrasing of a question that related to a previous situation we were dealing with. Your paycheck from the end of last month still hasn't been cleared. I got paid on the 1st and 15th of the month, and today is October 2. I haven't even registered that it's October, so I thought he meant my check from the end of August, which absolutely did not clear already. Cue 15 to 20 minutes of irritated texting back and forth, ending in a double apology when I admitted I had not yet eaten any breakfast and I'd spilled the coffee I brought to work. So I was being very sensitive. We had stupid arguments like this probably once a month. I always end up red-faced and breathing hard in anger because of my quick temper, and then he tries to make me laugh because he hates conflict. 15 years together, still going strong. Story 19. Back when Kanye West, my beautiful dark twisted fantasy, came out, my boyfriend, now ex, was mad that I was buying the album. I don't even know why he was being a Kanye hater because he liked Kanye and it was no secret I love Kanye. I think he just needed a reason for the week to be a schmuck. It turned into this huge fight that we have more important things to buy, blah blah blah. I probably yelled, "So says the guy who wastes money on video games every week." Besides, it was my own money. We each had our own to buy whatever we wanted. Anyway, he threatened to throw away my CD if I bought it. I told him if he did, I would buy 10 of them with money from our joint checking, blah blah blah. More yelling. I ended up getting the CD, put it in a CD player because, like I told him, it's my car and I'm playing Kanye. If he doesn't like it, then walk. I knew he liked the album but had to sit there in silence to make a point. We actually fought about Kanye a lot. Story 20. We got into a fight over dog mess. We were on a walk and I mentioned it'd be nice to have a dog. She hates dogs, so I wasn't too serious about it. She said, "Well, if we own one, you'll have to clean up its mess in the backyard." I said that I wasn't doing that. I'd pick up after the dog on a walk, but if it makes a mess in her backyard, well, that's going to happen. I'm not about to sweep the yard every day for its droppings. She kept pushing it. "You have to clean up after the dog." "I will, but not if it makes a mess in the yard." I was so floored by how upset she was over this hypothetical dog that I started laughing. She storms off towards the house and slams the door, which made me laugh harder. My mistake was following her and still laughing over it. She was not amused at all. I tried to put my arms around her, but she fought me off. I took it as she was wrestling, so I started wrestling like you would with a sibling. I immediately stopped and walked off the rage that spurred out in that moment. I avoided her for most of the day. She never apologized. I brought it up once afterwards, and all I got was, "Well, you were making me angry." Jesus. Anyway, now I'm divorced. Story 21. So my girlfriend and I went to watch Interstellar, which happens to have Ben Affleck's brother Casey Affleck or something. During the movie, I was like, I think that's Ben Affleck, but his jaw seems different. He has a beard in the movie, and he's got brown hair. Maybe he dyed his hair or something? I need to preface this with my girlfriend being an absolute person. You're not just wrong, you're stupid for thinking what you thought. She said there's no way that it's Ben Affleck, that I was blind, that he looked nothing like him. Well, we IMDb that movie, and after we find out it's his brother, I was like, oh, well, see, I was close. It wasn't Ben, but it was his brother. She refused to budge an inch, and we ended up screaming at each other the whole car ride home. That stuff comes up still, and I still maintain I'm obviously not stupid for thinking that a pair of brothers look similar. Jesus Christ, still makes me mad. Story 22. My first significant other and I were each other's firsts, and as such, we were having fun exploring anything and everything. One day he had me on the bed, and after he suddenly dove straight for my armpit, I backed as far into my bed as I could and shouted, "What are you doing?" He kept trying, so I rolled away, resulting in me falling off the bed. I was hurting as I pulled myself back up. What in the world was that? He just looked frustrated and turned his back on me. Okay, I'm sorry for laughing. I snort as I say this, trying to hold back. Just tell me why you did that. He turned to look at me with tears in his eyes. Stop laughing, it's not funny, he snapped. Sorry, I just don't understand. Don't get upset, but please explain why you were trying to, do stuff with my armpit. He then told me he had read somewhere online that your armpit was an erogenous zone that some girls liked when you made out with it. I was laughing so hard and he got angry, and then told him that it was disgusting as I sweat from there and put deodorant there, which wouldn't taste very good. He got so mad he put his pants on and stormed out. I apologized for making fun of him, but I don't think he ever got over it. Anytime I lifted my arm and showed him my armpit while raising my eyebrows at him, he'd be mad and I'd be laughing so hard. Story 23. Me and my girlfriend frequently have just for fun play arguments for giggles. I imagine others would find it weird, but we find it amusing and comforting to know that we can talk shit to each other without any feelings being hurt. Last night while out at dinner and after a few drinks, we were both talking over, mocking and interrupting each other whilst trying to prove our points. We were having a blast, to say the least. At some point I wanted to actually say something I felt was important and of significance, so I got serious, put on my straight face, and after more back and forth annoying banter I told her, I'm trying to communicate with you, shut up. Then proceeded on to my argument without missing a single beat. I didn't even realize the ridiculousness of what I just said. She broke down in laughter and happy tears, and she almost fell out of her chair. Story 24. We were taking a break from Dead Space 3, I think, because things got too intense, so we put Minecraft in. Well, the relaxation didn't last long. This schmuck kept saying my castle looked bad. Can you believe that? Then he built a wall of lava to separate our territory, only because he knew I'd think it would be ugly and want it gone. He then proceeded to call me something ridiculous. I know, over and over while I pout about how ugly the wall is. He took it too far by blowing my wizard tower up. I really didn't expect it. My voice was shaky and I was whispering, trying not to cry. I could only say, tears in my eyes. Oh my goodness. I have no idea why I was so worked up and emotional that night. I took Minecraft out of my Xbox and left the party. He texted me a minute later asking if I'm okay. Our screaming match about how he blew up my tower and it certainly did not look bad, and he took it too far. We haven't played Minecraft since. Story 25. I was driving to my mom's house with my girlfriend and she had her music playing. I really couldn't be listening to it, so I asked her to turn it down. The dial said the volume was 10. She refused, so I lowered it to 8, hoping for some kind of compromise. She raised it, I lowered it, she raised it along with her voice, I returned the favor, and repeated this for the next 10 minutes. Eventually, we're outright screaming at each other, and I end up pulling over telling her to get out of the car. She of course refused, and I drove away somewhat defeated. The argument continued, so I yanked the cable out and Ed Sheeran ceased playing. A few minutes later, I put the radio on and the process reversed. I wanted the volume up. She would turn it off, etc., etc. I cranked the music right up, covering the dial with my hand as we were both screaming in each other's face. Right at that moment, the same Ed Sheeran song that she was listening to came on. I immediately pushed the button to turn it off. We both asynchronously realized how stupid we were being and both burst out laughing for the next 20 minutes. Story 26. We've been together for 6 years and we argue over stupid stuff all the time. Like what to get at the grocery and then laugh about it later. Our first argument occurred around 2 to 3 months of dating. We were on a double date with our friends at a steakhouse, and being a healthy person, I ordered 2 sides of the mixed veggies with my fish. I don't eat red meat, instead of a potato or something fried. My food comes out as just a massive heap of broccoli. No carrots, no cauliflower, just a plate full of steamed broccoli. I love broccoli, but it wasn't what I was expecting. It's certainly not a mountain of it. So I complained a little bit and was obviously dissatisfied, but not enough to bother our server about it. But this turned into a huge deal because my girlfriend was upset that I wouldn't tell the waitress that I didn't get what I ordered. So we started arguing back and forth about me not wanting to say anything to our waitress. Finally, she tells the waitress herself, which kind of humiliated me because it became one of those things where the argument is bigger than its source, and we find out they changed their veggies and there's nothing they can do. My girlfriend ended up giving me the silent treatment the rest of the night and ended taking a 3-day break from each other. We tell that story all the time and just laugh about it now. Story 27. Ex-girlfriend had a strange night out while I was home late at night doing homework. She went right to bed. And about 30 minutes later, she was up again, rinsing the remote control out in the sink. Evidently, she tried to carry a mess in the battery compartment to the bathroom. I went to the bathroom after having an awkward conversation with her about the accident she had. There in the bed was about 9 more inches of mess just chilling on her sheets. I thought that must have felt great, but it was no accident. About a year later, I went out with a friend and got blackout hammered and ended up retching over the edge of the bed. She came home and told me how gross I was and how disappointed she was. Long story short, I had the old "you made a mess in the bed" card that I was so calm about the night of said event. I'm not sure how the argument lasted as long as it did, but it mostly ended with, "I'll tell the world that I retched on the side of the bed, but your thing." Story 28. My boyfriend and I got into a 2-hour argument on Mac versus PC. It was insane. I really like to play devil's advocate, and he was unreasonably snotty about Macs. We're both so stubborn that we just stood in the kitchen and argued while we made and ate dinner together. It got heated a few times, but was overall just a weird debate. I just wanted him to agree that PCs were also awesome computers, for various reasons. He was firm that all Apple computers were the best. The conversation went deep. After things cooled down, our roommate came out of his room. We didn't think he was home and spoke loudly and offensively. He heard everything we said. We share a small apartment with his door outside the kitchen. For 2 hours straight. He wanted to come out to greet us when we finished our talk, but we discussed this stupid topic for so long he couldn't escape. The best part? My boyfriend got me a wonderful MacBook Pro for my birthday a few weeks later. I was curious to try out Macs and really needed a new computer. I thought I made him really mad about the argument, and he thought I was mad. It was a super sweet gift. Story 29. The ex and I were going to have people over for Thanksgiving dinner, so I spent all day cleaning the apartment and making the 3-course dinner with zero help from Mr. Call of Duty. Got everything done, food is smelling amazing, time to get dressed as everyone would be there within the hour. He comes into the kitchen, looks at all of the dishes lined up in order for when to reheat. Cod. Looks good. Where are the giblets? The what? The giblets. Oh no, I bet they were in that white bag. I left it on the counter over there when I started cooking. Oh yeah, here they are. Well, they've been out since I put the turkey in, so they've probably gone off. Well, this dinner is just ruined. God, how could you forget the giblets? Are you serious? Storms out. Launch his head of garlic a retreating schmuck. Ended up spending 2 minutes shell-shocked in the kitchen and proceeding to the living room, where someone was playing COD again. Cancelled the party because I could not get my rage back to an acceptable level in time. I don't think we spoke for the rest of the holiday weekend, and we ended up breaking up a few months later. Super embarrassing part? I had a job interview a few years later that had a very detailed background check. Had to own up to throwing a head of garlic at someone during a fight. I still hate giblets. Story 30. Oh man, I wish I'd seen this earlier. So my now ex-wife and I were at a rocky point in our relationship. I was thinking about getting a new car for my commute. We always used hers on the weekend, so it made sense for me to have something more economical for my 100 trek to work and back. This was right around the time the smart car hit the States. I thought it looked kind of fun, got good miles, and it was cheap. She was adamant that I not buy it because it was so small I can't possibly be safe. Being the know-it-all that I am, I compiled all the data I possibly could find. Crash tests, results, videos of wrecks, the physics behind why the Tridodge will make the car safe despite its size. She still wouldn't budge, because she didn't feel like it would be safe. At this point, I should mention that at the time, she worked for Mercedes-Benz as a receptionist. The next day, she came home all aglow and said, "The sales guys at the dealership agree with me. They said it's not safe. So ha!" To which I replied, "So let me get this straight. I showed you pages and pages of evidence. I showed you videos of crash tests and explained the scientific evidence behind it all. These guys said they agreed with you but offered nothing to refute what I've shown you. And you're going to take their word over not just the data I've given you, but my word as your husband that this is a safe car? She happily nodded away and I continued. Well then, your friends are idiots and you're a moron for believing them. The next day she asked me to move out. That's right, ladies and gents. The smart car is the reason my wife divorced me. Clearly we were having other issues, but now that we're on friendly terms, it's fun to joke about. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.